Right now, when I look at the Green Bay Packers, this is a wide receiver room that has caused great frustration for a many a years. Matt, who's the one? Who's the one? Jordan Love needs a number one, number one. I'll tell you this, Matt. I've been saying it on this show all year. I didn't want any damn receiver coming off of a season-ending knee injury. Didn't want him. Didn't want that Diggs. I don't want him. No, thank you. Here comes Christian Watson. He comes strolling back to the football field. And of course, Ray Garvin doesn't want him. I don't want that Christian Watson. No way he can be good. They plug him right back in the lineup, and all we've seen over the last couple of weeks is his target share steadily increase. This past week in week 11, it wasn't a game-breaking target share performance, but he did set a season high in route participation, team leading 79% route participation, almost 20% target share in week 11. 33% of the first reads went Christian Watson's way. And we saw when the Green Bay Packers needed a big explosive play, he was down the field. And in the past couple of weeks, he probably should have more. There are a couple of ball tracking things with Christian Watson where he even went to social media and tweeted because people said the last week's game, he should have caught that pass where he looked like he turned into a defensive back. He retweeted it and said, yeah, I should have caught that. I absolutely should have caught that pass. This past week, there was another long play where it would have been a tough grab. DB made a great play, but I want to see Watson pull that in. My question to you look at how he's getting used. He's first on the team in yards per route run. I'm kind of removing Jaden Reed. He's number one, but he hadn't played a lot. You're seeing the deep targets, the downfield looks. Jordan Love still wants to push the ball, and this is a team who's probably going to be without Josh Jacobs. They've already lost Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft was the guy. That's the one you talk about. Who's the one in Green Bay? It was Tucker Kraft. He's gone. How attractive is Christian Watson now and moving forward in this week? Not an easy matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, but I mean, this is a Green Bay team. They got to go too. They've spent a lot of money and exhausted a lot of draft capital to get this thing done. Talk about what are your thoughts on Watson this year in this current situation, because it doesn't feel like it's going to be golden. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a Dontavian Wicks or a Malik Heath. Talk to me, Harmon.
Yeah, I have said this since he got back in that Pittsburgh game. I've been so impressed and completely kind of caught off guard by how well Christian Watson has played, because I'm with you. I was open to some of the knee injury guys. I think Diggs was truly the only one that I was like, I'm willing to take a shot on Diggs, but right. Godwin, Ayuk, just completely like those guys were 2026 equations to me. They were never really in play this year. And Watson was even further down the priority list because he tore that damn knee in January, and he's not at the level of Chris Godwin or Ayuk or any of those guys. They're obviously, to me, higher ranked players. So
right.
This was never really considering Watson could be a part of the proceedings, especially this early. And I do wonder how much the injury to Reed and maybe the kind of injuries to Matthew Golden and him not quite catching on right away, maybe that and even Dontavian Wicks was banged up at one point too. I wonder if that maybe changed the equation here, and they were like, let's get Christian, who they gave a 1-year contract extension to. Let's get him a little bit more ramped up a little quickly than we expected. But damn, dude, I think he's just been impressive, and he's been impressive against zone coverage in particular, and on these long developing routes downfield. And the other area where I think he's really impressed me, and you mentioned he probably could have tracked that one ball better and brought it in. He talked about it on social media. Generally, though, I think in the contested catch situations, he's been pretty much their best option this year. And that is an area that's going to continue to happen because this offense wants to run the ball well, and they want to take deep shots. That's the formula for Green Bay. So I don't think that part is going away for Christian Watson.
Listen, their next couple of opponents, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Ravens, they are all top 7 in the NFL at deep balls allowed. They give up those big explosive plays. I think Watson has always been pretty damn good in those contested catch situations as well. He finds a way to pull those balls down more often than not. And this team was built with Tucker Kraft as the focal point. He's no longer there. I don't know what Jacobs' long-term outlook is, but that's a big weapon gone out of the backfield. I truly believe that they're at this point now not as in dire need as where Arizona was, where like Michael Wilson, we need you, dude. We got nobody else. You got to get fed the ball.
Yeah.
Romeo Doubs is still very much involved. Romeo Doubs is still very much involved, but he's not creating those big plays. Like, you just know, you're watching the game,
Not his game.
and you know when Jordan Love play actions and it's a 7-step drop, you know he's chunking it to number 9. You know there's a chance number 9 is down there somewhere. And I do think, Matt, that this continues. Green Bay, they got to get on it, right? Chicago's leading that division. You've got the Lions still fighting currently. If the season were to end today, they're not in the damn playoffs. So it is go time right here for this Packers offense, because the defense is doing their job. They, for the most part, the defense is doing their job. The Green Bay offense has got to get it going. And I think Christian Watson down the stretch, high-end flex guy down the way.
All right, we are back. Let's continue giving our stats heading into week 12. Ray, give me your 4th data point for the week.
Let's talk about it, baby. Let's talk about a maybe a mini breakout happening right now before our eyes. You know, a lot of times coach speak does not materialize to true fantasy production, but in the case of the Detroit Lions and Jameson Williams, the coach speak is absolutely it's worked out. It has worked out over the last 3 weeks. 17.7 half PPR points per game. Good for wide receiver 4. 5th in total routes run over that time period. Still low target share, right around 19-20%. 4th in EPA when targeted. When you look at his last 5 games, Matt Harmon, his last 5 games, he has a touchdown in 4 of his last 5 games. And we've just seen a steady a dose of offensive involvement for this young former first-round pick in conjunction with Amon-Ra. I think a lot of people last week with Sam Laporta hitting the IR, a lot of the speculation was, oh my gosh, there's going to be an uptick for Brock Wright and all these other guys. And while Amon-Ra St. Brown led the way customarily with his 12 targets, as he should, not a lot of production, you're seeing Jameson Williams get the shots that matter. He's still not getting 10, 12 targets, and that's probably not within his game. But when they're using him, I mean, Jameson Williams on crossing routes against Matt, that's unfair. It is absolutely unfair. Like you are scheming up easy completions for your big play threat, and then down the field, he is such a good wide receiver. Like we always look back after the season. Oh man, he kind of broke out last year. There was a little bit of a breakout from where JMO started this season, the first 4 weeks, to what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, this is what a mini little breakout feels like, and this is what it looks like. And you ride the wave when that's happening. You exploit the upcoming matchups. And for a team, again, you've got Gibbs. Montgomery's, he does what he does out of the backfield, but it's Gibbs, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's Jameson Williams. I love what the Lions and Dan Campbell are doing with him. And I do think with him being on the field, running more routes, maybe he gets a little more. I don't think he's going to be like a 25% target share guy, Matt. But if he can stay in that 20 to 22 range for the rest of the season with his big play ability, like this isn't just a wide receiver 2 or another option. This is a guy that on a week-to-week basis has top 10 upside. Like, there are very few players not inside that top 10 range that you can say they're part of an offensive environment. They've got the quarterback, they've got the usage, the skill set to be a high-end level receiver more often than not. Jameson Williams is absolutely one of those guys, and he doesn't need 12 targets to do it. All he needs is a couple of good looks, and he's going to convert for you. So I like what we've seen from JMO the past month of the season.
Jameson Williams, wide receiver 55 in points per game the first 8 weeks of the NFL season. And not exactly where you want to be. And he is such a fascinating player to talk about for a few different reasons, because I think he perfectly personifies one of my favorite phrases. I bring it up all the time. Sigmund Bloom says you could be right and wrong about a player all within the course of the same season. And if you were somebody that was really bullish on Jameson Williams, and I mean, I had him ranked as wide receiver 26, which was kind of in line with where he was going in drafts. I didn't have a strong take one way or another here. But if you were somebody that was really bullish, like ahead of ADP on JMO, I mean, you felt like, I'm sure you felt like an idiot in the first half of the year when freaking wide receiver 55 or whatever. He's not even, by the way, narrowly beating out your buddy Tyquan Thornton, who we were just talking about. 7.07 points per game for J-Mo, 7.01 for Tyquan Thornton. So speed guys.
Get that Tyquan involved. I'm telling you, he's the key.
He's the next Jameson Williams. But I think the other part of this that's really interesting too is that J-Mo is he's a particular player. You know, he needs to be deployed in the right ways. He's a fast guy. And I think John Morton, new offensive coordinator, became obsessed with using that speed in the vertical sense. But I think Dan Campbell knows this because we saw Ben Johnson kind of figure that out at one point not late last year, but midway through last year when he truly had his breakout season. Let's get him on crossing routes that you mentioned. Let's get him on those runaway routes. Yep. And now we've seen J-Mo be able to get back to that now that Dan Campbell's taken over the play calling again. I think Dan Campbell's done a great job the last 2 weeks. I know the offense kind of stunk it up last week, but that was because Jared Goff had a historic for his play with the Lions, historically worst game, his worst completion percentage of his career. That's not going to happen again. It's just not going to happen again. Those conditions are not going to be replicated. So, and the other part of this, I'm glad you brought up the Sam Laporta thing. It's been a little bit of like a back and forth in that Lions offense where only one of those guys can really be crushing for fantasy. It was obviously Sam Laporta in his rookie year was awesome. Then Jameson Williams broke out last year, kind of made Sam Laporta a little bit of a disappointment. To start this year, Sam Laporta was actually really good as a fantasy tight end, and Jameson Williams was wide receiver 55. So now that I think the runway has just been cleared here for J-Mo to be exactly what you said. Second half of the year, now if you're in on J-Mo pre-draft, now you're like really going to reap the rewards this second half of the year.
And Detroit, right? This is a team where I love the good offenses that haven't locked anything up, that don't even look close to locking anything up because they got to go. You know, again, this division right now, the NFC North, very competitive with especially those top three teams with the Bears leading the way, the Lions and the Packers. But there's no time and no room to let it work itself out. And, you know, we'll give like they're not even playing around right now. There's no like we are trying to get the ball to the guys that are going to score us touchdowns. We don't got time to play these games. Let's get Gibbs involved, hell or high water, on the ground through the air. J-Mo, it's go time. Amon-Ra, you're getting 12 to 15 looks a week. Goff needs to play like Goff didn't play well. Goff was very bad. Goff was very bad last week. But when you look at J-Mo's usage and how they've deployed him since Dan Campbell started to take over these last 4 weeks, like this is what you wanted. And I think the runway, as you said, without Sam Laporta makes him very attractive moving forward. Very attractive. The team's got to win. They're very much in contention for a playoff spot. Get your playmakers the ball.
Three straight home games for the Detroit Lions here. Giants, Packers, Cowboys the next 3 weeks, including that Thanksgiving matchup. Then they go to LA to play the Rams inside. Then they get the Steelers week 16 back at home. Week 17 fantasy championship in Minnesota, so in a dome. So, I mean, Boone talks about this a lot. The splits for Jared Goff, inside, outside, very big. We're seeing all dome games the rest of the way for Jared Goff. So we should see some good stuff for J-Mo.
They got the Giants. They got the Giants this week, Matt. They got the Giants this week. That's a get right spot, baby. That's a get right spot for the Lions.
Speaking of get right, I'll get into my fourth data point here. Nico Collins has gotten right lately. Is his wide receiver one season back on the menu? And in addition to that, what do we make of these Davis Mills splits? Because weeks 1 to 7, okay, this is just how the season went for Nico Collins to start. 10.6 points per game. That was wide receiver 28. Not completely crushing you, but obviously not worth what you paid for him in drafts. He was targeted on 26% of his routes, 1.9 yards per route, 24% target share, 34% air yard share, 3 touchdowns. Weeks 9 to 11, with obviously mostly Davis Mills playing, 16.6 points per game, wide receiver 6, 28% targets per route, 2.3 yards per route, 29% target share, 40% air yard share, and just 1 touchdown. So Davis Mills has gotten on the field, and he's been one of those backups that he has just known the assignment. Where's my number one guy? a guy that I've actually played a lot with to start our careers and made people think Nico Collins wasn't good because Davis Mills stunk it up to start his career. Where's that guy? I'm going to get him the football over and over again. So what do we make of these Davis Mills splits with CJ Stroud? Because Stroud is likely missing. He's going to miss this game on Thursday night against the Bills, but he should be back in week 13.
Listen, he is, I continue, he's understood the assignment. Like, Davis Mills has come in and hyper targeted his big play guy. And I think some of the things that are working in favor for the Houston Texans is that they're not very good running the ball right now. I appreciate their commitment to Woody Marks. I love it, right? Especially for a guy that I was so high on in the pre-draft process. I appreciate their willingness to commit to the run, but they have not been successful at moving the ball on the ground. But there is something to Davis Mills. He is an experienced quarterback. He's had a full season to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and being able to come in and say that I love Jalen Noel, and I still think he's a very good player. But right now, like, your job is to feed your veterans. Get the ball to Nico. Get the ball to Schultz. They work in Jaden Higgins a little bit. There's not a lot of Noel, but for in the case of Nico, I mean, this is, and if you've watched it, Matt, and I'm not going to claim to have watched every snap versus the doggone Titans. I'm just, I did not do that.
Fair enough.
There's some stuff that's been left on the field, right? There's some things that they don't let Davis Mills do to protect him, to protect the ball, to protect the offense. Nico looks as good as ever. Nico looks fantastic. I think what you're hoping continues is if Mills can just hold serve, right? If he's going to just hold serve and continue to give Nico his 10 to 15 targets a week, I think there are some big fantasy finishes left in our space that Nico can accomplish. I love what this team is doing. And even though they haven't been successful on the ground, the fact that they keep running the ball and trying to establish it, it does open up some stuff from a play action standpoint. Like, it's the offense is looking really good right now with Houston.
Yeah, I think Davis Mills is a solid backup quarterback. He was obviously not good enough to be a starting quarterback in the league, but I think the fact that he's, as you said, come in and understood the assignment, get that ball to number 12 over and over and over again, who's so far and away their best player. I think hopefully that's a sign that Nick Caley has adjusted a little bit here as well to make sure that Nico Collins is that primary more often than not. And look, every time I've tried to get my hopes up for Nick Caley, he's let me down the next week. So maybe that'll happen here again. But my last point on this too is I just don't see any reason why this can't continue with CJ Stroud as well. You know, I was tweeting with Scott Barrett a couple of last week or something. And I think Scott does great work, so I'm not taking a shot at him when I say this, but he posted the stat that if you take away one busted coverage, I think was the point of this, that Nico Collins has not cleared 75 yards receiving in any of his last 11 games with CJ Stroud. And I just pointed out, because this is, again, I'm not taking a shot at Scott here. I think Scott does great work, but I think sometimes when we do fantasy work, we forget that there's this section of games called the NFL playoffs that happen after fantasy football season is over. By the way, those games actually matter quite a bit, because let's not forget that Nico Collins had 7 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown against the Chargers when they won that game with CJ Stroud under center, and 5 catches for 81 yards the week prior when they faced the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's I think this narrative that Davis Mills is doing is better than Stroud, or better to get the ball to Nico Collins and CJ Stroud. I don't know if I buy into that. So I think that Nico can continue to do this once Stroud gets back. Let's talk about another big perimeter wide receiver who is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting here for your 5th data point, because, again, his teammate allegedly spat on another human being.
Listen, allegedly. That's what Jamar Chase told me and everybody else, Matt. Allegedly. But let's talk about his running mate, T. Higgins. Since 2022, there have been 5 regular season games where Jamar Chase was inactive and T. Higgins was on the field. We saw some very big performances in those games. He had 3 of them with over 120 yards without Jamar Chase. 3 touchdowns in 5 games, so a 60% TD rate. He's getting 5 receptions in 4 of those 5 games on average, close to 9 targets, 6 catches, 102 yards, and half a touchdown in those games without Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is going to be suspended we've got Joe Flacco, and we also have on paper what looks like a difficult matchup against the New England Patriots. You got Christian Gonzalez, you've got Drake May. But when you look at the Pats defense over the last 3 weeks, it has been, you could get them through the air. They are 14th in passing yards allowed over the last 3 weeks, weeks 9, weeks 10, and week 11. They are tied for second in the NFL in touchdowns allowed over that period of time, with 7 passing touchdowns allowed, tied with the Miami Dolphins and the Washington Commanders. When you look at the yards per attempt allowed by their defense, very tough. They do not give up a lot of short underneath stuff at all. And completion percentage wise, facing quarterbacks, they're right at the middle of the road. So I know Christian Gonzalez is an all-pro caliber cornerback. I know defensively this team is very good. Spillane in the middle at linebacker. No, Milton Williams is banged up, but this is a spot where a lot of people are going to be like, man, do I even play T. Higgins? The answer is yes, you absolutely do, because Cincinnati, they're chucking the ball 40 plus times a game. And I do think that even in this difficult matchup, which I don't know if Gonzalez is going to travel with T. Higgins. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But if he doesn't, and even if he does, like, this is a spot where they're going to throw the ball to their primary a lot. I'm not as afraid of T. Higgins this week. It's a tough matchup, no doubt about it, but this is not the type of defense that you just can't pass on. And we've seen teams of late be able to throw on the New England Patriots as well. So without Jamar Chase, we're talking about a usage spike for T. Higgins. Been pretty good in his career without Jamar Chase, and I think he is a good receiver this week as well.
This is one of those spots where you can kind of look at it both ways, where obviously, no Jamar Chase, T. Higgins gets a bump. No kidding. You don't need to be watching this show to know that that is the case. But again, to talk about it both ways, one, you mentioned the Christian Gonzalez matchup. We showed the stats on the screen here earlier. He's just been awesome this year. He's been a lockdown corner. He does travel with number ones, but 304 cover snaps, 0 touchdowns allowed, 44% completion rate allowed. But we've seen guys like Emeka Egbuka be able to have big games against the Patriots because he's a move-around guy. He plays about a third of his snaps in the slot. The thing for T is that he's mostly a pure perimeter receiver. Jamar is kind of the guy that gets to move around. So will he be a little bit easier for Christian Gonzalez to track? I think probably more so than a guy like Emeka Egbuka in that game. But the other thing that is interesting about this matchup, you mentioned how you can get the Patriots. The Patriots are 5th most in terms of points per drop back allowed when they're in man coverage. And they lean into that man coverage a little bit, a good bit, about 27.6% of their plays, which is a top half number. It's about 11th in the league. And again, you can get them 5th most points per drop back. T. Higgins, among all wide receivers right now, is 17th in yards per route against man coverage, 2.36. So this is the type of matchup where, even if Christian Gonzalez is tracking him around, he's not got a lot of, quote, separation, he can still win against man coverage because he can use that big old body and post him up. And Joe Flacco, we know, will take chances there.
And then who else do they have? I mean, who else are they going to throw the ball to? I mean, Yosivas, Chase Brown. I mean, it may be one of those things where the volume is just so high, you live with it. And I do think that in today's NFL, I mean, if you got the matchup and he's the only ticket in town for a team that's going to throw the ball 40-something times potentially because they can't stop anybody, I fully expect New England to run it up against this defense. Shamar Stewart on IR. They don't have linebackers that can cover worth a damn. Like, this is just the game script to where you could just get garbage time points, and T. Higgins has been a big play monster down the field. He is incredible in contested catch situations, and I mean, he is 6'4", 200+ pounds. So put it up, give him a chance. I think this is a spot where he could, even in a difficult matchup, like, I don't trust anybody else in Cincinnati. Not from a pass catcher standpoint. It should be T. Higgins and a healthy dose of Chase Brown, and you hope they get it done from there.